What's going on with Julio? Why is Luke Raley not playing? And what can be done to stop all these pitcher injuries? We'll discuss all that and more coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, April 11th, 2024. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Badnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Another Thursday, another day off for the Mariners, so we're going to take some time to look at some big picture stuff with the team and also answer a couple leftover questions from the mailbag earlier this week. But I want to start here, Colby. Where is Luke Raley? Why is he not playing?
As far as I can tell, he ran over Tucker because that's really the only thing that seems to make any sense as to why Luke Raley has 20 plate appearances in 13 games, and he only has that many because Ty France went on paternity leave and he got to start 2 games.
Yep.
I have no idea what they're doing with Luke Raley. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what, are they working on something? Are they trying to tweak something? Is he dealing with something minor that they're trying to, get him to work through injury-wise? What is he doing? Like, what is his role on this team? And as far as I can tell, the Mariners have not a clue. They don't have a single clue as to how they want to use him, how they think that he can help them. Again, 20 plate appearances. I think the only guy with fewer plate appearances is Sebi Zavala, the backup catcher, because you have an all-star, like top 3, top 4 catcher playing every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? Like,
well, and there are ways that you can get Raley into the
easy,
very easily. Yeah. I mean, Mitch Garver right now is really struggling. So why not have Mitch Haniger DH for a day and put Raley out there? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to make this an either or situation with Dominic Canzone. No. You don't have to. But they're making it that way.
Right. Now. Well, it's just, you can give Luke Raley 3 or 4 starts a week by only taking away 1 start a week from a handful of different players. That's kind of the beauty of Luke Raley right now, is that I can take 1 start away from Mitch Haniger a week. I could take 1 start away from Mitch Garver a week. I could take 1 start away from Dominic Canzone a week. And that right there is 3 starts in a week. And all those other guys still get 5 or 6, depending on how many games you play. So you have them play right field, left field, first base, DH. And those are all guys that and he can even fake it in center field if you need him to. Those are all guys that you're going to have to give days off at some point. And those are guys who, you can kind of pick and choose the matchups that make the most sense for them. So, do you want to bench, Garver even struggling against a lefty? No, probably not. But okay, fine. Then how about, Dom Canzone doesn't play that day and you go with Luke Raley, or Mitch Haniger has played in 12 of the 13 games already. That's a lot. You're going to have to start to ease him back a little bit. And there's Luke Raley right there. So maybe giving, Haniger a day off against a tough righty isn't a bad idea to try and keep him fresh. Like, you have to give Luke Raley a shot to show whether or not he can help you, because 20 plate appearances in 2 weeks is not anything. That is nothing. You're actively hurting him, and you're hurting yourself by not seeing what this guy can give you. It just doesn't make sense, because again, you don't have to, it's him or Canzone, and one of them's going to play 5 days a week, and Canzone's hitting a little bit right now, so it should be him playing 5 or 6 times a week. It's like, yeah, Dominic Canzone can still play 5 or 6 times a week.
Yeah.
Julio Rodríguez can still play 6 times a week. Mitch Garver can still play 5-6 times a week.
Mhm.
Haniger could still play 5-6 times a week. He shouldn't, but that's how they're using him right now.
And again, Raley and Canzone can coexist in the same outfield together.
Yeah. Particularly with a tough righty on the mound. Like, I don't understand. And again, I'll just throw this out there. There's basically no evidence to suggest that Raley and Canzone should never face left-handed pitching. It just doesn't really exist. Like, they've hit left-handed pitching pretty well in their entire minor league career. And, Canzone had the same WRC plus against lefties last year as he did righties. And people assume he can hit righties. Like, there's no evidence to suggest that they have to be platooned even. So even with a lefty on the mound, you could probably go to one of these or both of these guys. So what's the plan? Like, how is this fair to Luke Raley? And this idea that like, well, he's not hitting, who are you going to put on the bench for him? We just talked about it. You could have him play a different position pretty much every day and still give the guys who are hitting right now 6 days a week. And this is especially annoying because you look at the two Mitches, those are guys that we know they need to give time off to. They can't expect them to go out there and play every single day and get through a season healthy. That's just not realistic. So there's 2 starts right there. One a day, one a week for one a week for each of the Mitches. And then once a week for Ty France.
One for Dom.
There's
et cetera,
4 starts.
et cetera. Yeah. Yeah. He, heading into yesterday, Raley and Dylan Moore had the same amount of plate appearances. And I believe Arias also had the same amount of plate appearances. But both of those guys, because they started yesterday, they moved past Raley. So, like you mentioned, he has the second fewest, unless you want to include Samad Taylor.
No.
He has the second fewest plate appearances on the team.
Yeah. Dude was a 130 WRC plus hitter last year. And I know people like to qualify that and be like, well, he was really bad in the second half. He's a 93. It's not good, but that's not awful, right? That's not something that's so bad that you're like, well, the first half was clearly a fluke. No, it's not, because overall the numbers still say he was a 130 WRC plus guy. He hit 19 home runs. He stole 14 bases. He played pretty good defense. He had above league average on base. He had above league average batting average, above league average slugging. He was a good player last year. You got to give him an opportunity. He can't fix what's wrong if he's not getting reps. And you can't tell if what you're trying to do is working unless he plays.
Yep.
So I don't understand. I think he has to start at least 2 games this weekend. Like, you have to start putting this guy in the lineup.
They're going up against Jordan Wicks and Shota Imanaga, though, which just going on, because again, like you said, we don't have enough evidence to suggest that he just can't hit lefties, but it's pretty clear that the Mariners don't think that he can hit lefties with the way that they've deployed him. So I don't know if
no evidence suggests he can't hit lefties.
Yeah. So just going off of that, I kind of doubt that he's going to see more than 1 start in this series,
which would make him, which would give him 1 start for an entire week.
Yeah.
Or if he even gets a start this weekend.
That's right.
So the Mariners are deploying a strategy right now that would have Luke Raley, assuming he doesn't play against the lefties, right, where he would get 4 at-bats in a week, if that.
Yeah. Well,
it's not going to work
for
anybody.
Yeah, it just you're just putting him at a disadvantage, especially after a sluggish spring training, where he needs to be able to get his timing right, and he's just not going to get an opportunity to do that if he's playing once every 5 or 6 days. So they got to put him in the lineup just to see if there's something there, right? And if you're not willing to play him, I mean, just frankly, he shouldn't be on your roster.
Right. I mean, yeah, I get it. He doesn't have an option left, and you put him on waivers, very clearly he'll get picked up, and somebody would give him an opportunity.
100%. This is why you should play him.
Right, which is why you can't just be like, well, we don't want somebody else to get him, so I guess we'll just sit him and we'll just play with, a 3-man bench all year. Like, you can't do it. You have to give this. If you give this guy 150 plate appearances and it's just not happening, we can have a conversation. You can't give him 20 scattered over 12, 13 games and be like, well, he's not going to help us. And now we just have to kind of sit here and hope that maybe on the off chance he actually gets a start, he has a good game to prove to us. And it's not fair. It's not fair. You sit and you don't do anything for 2 weeks, and you tell me how good and effective you're going to be when the first time you get an opportunity arises. Like, it doesn't make sense. They're not even using him in traditional, obvious roles for a true bench bat either. Hey, we could really use a home run here. We got the tying run on first base, or we got the tying run at the plate. We could really use a home run here. Let's look on our bench. Oh, we got a power righty on the mound. Who's on the bench? Oh, it's Luke Raley, a guy who can really hit a fastball. Yeah. Let's put him out there. Let's see if he can, clock one into the bleachers, and let's see if we can tie this game up. Nope. Instead, let's use him as a pinch runner. Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. I've been very confused with their usage of Raley. They need to use him. Just simple as that. Because, again, if you're not going to use him, he shouldn't be on your roster, but you also shouldn't just waste Luke Raley like that. So you need to play him. This team needs to play him. So hopefully he is able to get into the lineup at least once in this upcoming series against the Cubs. But let him hit against the lefty. Why not?
Give him a start against Wicks.
Yeah. He's not an overpowering lefty.
No, if you don't want to use him against Imanaga, fine, whatever.
Sure. That I can understand.
Yeah, give him Wicks, just like, when they started to use Kelnick last year, who was the first lefty he got to start against? It was Austin Gomer. That's a good test.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but you can't have a guy who doesn't get in that bat an entire series unless you're talking about a glove only backup catcher.
Yeah.
If we go a series without seeing Sebi Zavala, fine. Whatever. If we go a series without seeing Luke Raley, you're messing something up.
Yeah.
Because there are opportunities. Don't let anybody tell you. Don't think that there aren't opportunities for the Mariners to get Luke Raley his plate appearances right now. There absolutely are. And you can do it without taking away a drastic amount of plate appearances. And you don't even have to play him the whole game either.
Yeah.
If you don't think he can hit lefties and, oh no, here comes the lefty out of the bullpen, guess who's on my bench? Dylan Moore and Mitch Haniger or Mitch Garver or whoever.
Right.
I have the answer on my bench if I really don't think he can hit lefties. It just doesn't make any sense. It's dumb.
Yeah, he needs reps. He needs reps. Mm-hmm. You need to give him reps. So hopefully that changes here in the coming days. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Julio, who's been struggling off to another poor start in the month of April, like his previous 2 seasons. We're going to go over a little bit of what's going on there with Julio, and then we're going to dive into a couple of questions that we have left over from the mailbag this past Monday in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Policy Genius and eBay Motors. Choosing the right life insurance policy is a very important and overwhelming decision, and you want to be able to feel fully confident making that decision. Now you can with Policy Genius, which is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options even offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Plus, your life insurance policy through your work may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. And there are thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs through Policy Genius. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And just a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and also Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. The Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So, Colby, what's going on with Julio right now? Because I know that he has hit the ball hard over the last couple of games. Well, not yesterday, but certainly on Monday, he had quite a few hard hit balls and had some really bad luck. I mean, yesterday we talked about the 116 mile per hour off of the bat that went right to Kevin Kiermaier. But this is the third April in a row that Julio has gotten off to a slow start. And this one might be the worst of the three. 44 WRC plus so far through the first 13 games of the year. He's running a 32.7% K rate, slashing 196, 255, 216. He doesn't have a home run. He's just been hitting a lot of singles when he has been getting hits. So what's going on with Julio right now?
Yeah, I think maybe something nobody wants to admit, but could be the case is maybe Julio's just a slow starter. It wouldn't be the first guy who just traditionally struggles in April who all of a sudden figures a way to turn it
Seager
on.
did a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, it's possible that's it. But I think it's interesting. You look at a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's hitting way too many ground balls," and it's like, well, his ground ball rate is up this year. Again, very small sample sizes this early in the year, but it's only up 1% over what it was last year. So that's interesting. His line drive rate is actually up 11 or 10% over what it was last year. So where is that difference coming in? Fly balls. His fly ball rate is half of what it was last year so far. So he's not hitting a lot of fly balls. He's hitting a lot of ground balls and not even hitting a lot of ground balls. He's hitting a lot of line drives. Now that's not a bad thing per se. But you want fly balls with the exit velo because that's where the damage comes from. And that's really what people are concerned about with Julio. It's not that, he's only hitting a $190 or whatever. It's like, okay, if he was, but he had 4 home runs, we just say he's working through something. So I think, people want to make it a launch angle thing, and it is a little bit. But last year, Julio's average launch angle against 4-seam fastballs, or just any fastball, sinkers, whatever, 6 degrees was the average launch angle. This year, it's 3. Not that significant. You look at the launch angle on breaking balls. This year, it's 20. Last year, it was 14. The big difference is the launch angle on off-speed pitches, is change-ups and splitters, essentially. This year, it's negative 73 is the average launch angle. He's pounding those pitches straight into the ground. Last year, that was at 5. So, right now you look at the whiff rate as well, 42% whiff rate on breaking balls, 44% on those off-speed pitches. That's the problem. Like, the fastball isn't really eating him up much. It's less than it was last year, but it's not a concern as of yet. His expected batting average on the fastball right now is only 6 points below where it was last year. And again, these are all very small sample sizes. So the thing with Julio is that he is any kind of changeup right now, any kind of splitter, he's just pounding it straight into the ground. Launch angle is a little bit different from where it was last year. So there might be a slight, course correction needs to make there, but he's actually not hitting significantly more ground balls than he did last year so far. He's hitting significantly fewer fly balls than he was last year. And when you have the ability to put up the exit velos that Julio does consistently, he needs to be hitting the ball in the air, line drive or higher for him. And then, but the ground ball rate, like, he's always had a pretty high ground ball rate. MLB average for ground ball rate is 44.6%. Julio in his 3 years in the big leagues, 46.3, 47.6, 48.5. Julio's always hit the ball on the ground a little bit more than the average player. So that's not really a thing. What is also interesting is right now his pull rate is actually 6% lower than it was last year.
Yep.
His opposite field rate is 2% lower than it was last year. So Where is he hitting the ball more often? Right up the middle, straight up the middle, center field to the gaps. He's at a 45% pull or straightaway rate this year. That is well above league average. So he's using the middle of the field right now. He's hitting, ground balls and line drives to the middle of the field. Guess where it's really hard to do damage, especially early in the season? Going up the middle. Why? It's colder. The ball doesn't travel as far. And part of that is also some timing issues, I think. I don't think that's all a concerted effort to just stay up the middle of the field more. I think that's a little bit about timing. He's a little bit caught in between, the fastball and the off speed stuff. So he's kind of trying to stay back and let the ball travel as much as he can before he attacks. So it could be a pitch recognition thing. It's maybe he just hasn't seen enough pitches yet to kind of dial in. It could be him adjusting to his new batting stance and kind of trying to find the sweet medium there that will produce the best results. And it could just be plain bad luck in the fact that we're 13 games into a season of 162 and he's just in a little bit of a slump right now. Like all those things seem feasible, but the idea that he's hitting way too many ground balls and that's the problem, not actually accurate. He needs to pull the ball more and he needs to get the ball in the air more. That's really what it is.
All right, we are going to answer a couple of questions that we have left over from the mailbag in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's LOCKDON, and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKDON. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Captain JP wants to know, with the Players Union blaming the increase in pitchers going down with TJ on the pitch clock, should teams make real changes now to counteract it? So we've seen quite a few prominent major league pitchers around the league go on the IL, or straight up, they've already had Tommy John surgery like Shane Bieber. But it's not just Bieber. It's Spencer Strider, Framber Valdez most recently, Nick Pivetta,
Garrett
Josiah
Cole.
Gray. Yeah. So what's going on right now? And, as Captain JP asked, how does Major League Baseball counteract this? And how do teams counteract this?
Yeah, this is a tricky subject because we're not doctors, right? In fact, most of the people who have an opinion on this are not doctors.
Yeah.
And these are the people whose opinions should really matter because they are the ones who are going to do the studies that determine this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. Do I think the pitch clock has something to do with it? Sure. Yeah, probably. You're putting unnecessary strain. You're limiting recovery time for a very unnatural motion. We're not built to throw anything overhand, really. So it's put a lot of strain on your shoulder, on your elbow. That's not supposed to be there. And you're limiting that time where you have to recover. And it may not seem like much, but when it's repetitive over and over and over again, those seconds add up. So I do think the pitch clock has something to do with it. I think the hyperfixation from the game on spin rates and just max effort at all times, I think that also plays something into this because this isn't something that players were doing, 15 years ago. Even there wasn't, spin rate was just kind of this new thing. And it's like, oh, you happen to be good at spinning this, instead of trying to teach everybody to have this high spin rate. Let's just, maybe we'll target it or whatever. But so I do think spin rate, and then obviously the max effort, like you have to throw max effort to get to the big leagues. Like,
yeah,
you can't just throw 91 and be like, I got 95 in my back pocket if I need it. Like, you're not going to get to the big leagues like that.
And that's a thing that goes well beyond Major League Baseball. That's a thing that starts years and years before players, aspiring players are even thinking about the big leagues.
We have all these pitching coaches and trainers, and it's like,
because
we're gonna,
like you said, if you want to get to the league as a pitcher right now, you have to throw gas and you have to spin the ball.
Yeah. So it's just, there's this whole kind of cottage industry, right? Of like, we're going to make you throw harder and we're going to help you spin the baseball better. And it's like, cool. But obviously that comes with some extra strain on your shoulder, on your elbow. So I don't know exactly what the thing is here. I don't think that like there's anything the league can do short of eliminating the pitch clock,
Yeah.
or possibly adding some time to it.
Mm.
That's fine, but like ultimately teams have to kind of make the decision like it's more valuable for us that you be good for 10 years than we just max you out and you're out of the league in 6 years. You know what I mean? Like, because for teams, like, they don't care what happens to you after their club control. They're just trying to extract the best baseball they can from you while they have your rights. And then once you leave, whatever, you're damaged goods. That's not our problem. Right. So it's a little bit about the players have to kind of step up and say, like, no, we're not okay with this. It's about teams kind of having to step up and be like, look, we need to find a way to kind of work around this and kind of, curb this a little bit. But again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you about the, physiological stresses that would really help, like the rule changes that could actually really help. I do wonder if maybe there is a opportunity for a team to go with a 6-man rotation, a true 6-man rotation,
Yeah.
and give these arms the extra day since they don't have the time between pitches that they used to have to kind of go there. Now, the problem with that is, do you want to take the ball away from your best guys more often?
Right.
You see, so you can see why teams have been a little
there's
hesitant to do it.
and there's also roster capacity questions
Yep.
there. Like, do you expand the rosters to 27 or 28?
Right.
As a way to
add
kinda
another pitch arm or two.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that you're kind of looking at this, this grouping that all kind of hit at the same time. This absolute reliance on max effort and max spin, and this, we're gonna have a pitch clock, and we had pace of play rules before, we just didn't enforce them. So now we're gonna add this clock, and oh, by the way, when guys get on base, you actually have less time, or it's just
Yeah.
the whole thing is just, it feels like you've created this perfect storm. And part of it again is on the league, sure, but it's also on the teams and it's on the players, the individual players who are sacrificing their health to get to the big leagues, and who could blame them? Like it's tough. It's a tough situation. And I think, there's very little that the league can do short of, removing the pitch clock thing. And I think if they got rid of the pitch clock tomorrow, I don't think that we would see a significant decrease in these arm injuries. I think it's more about the spin and the max effort. But again, maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to see some studies on it.
The other thing too, I heard Tyler Glasnow talking about this when they removed, the substances, right? And how, because now you can just basically use, rosin and sweat, and that's really it. Like, he's having to squeeze the hell out of the ball for his grip. And he when he got
baseballs are slick,
because he when he got injured, his most recent injury came right after they banned the substances, and he said that it felt different, like it affected his entire arm, the way that he was having to grip the ball. So I wonder if that's also a big problem
plus,
with this.
If you have some kind of substance on the ball, you get more spin easier. Like you're not producing as much, you're not having to produce as much spin yourself. The substance is helping with that. So maybe there's a substance that we can come to some sort of understanding or agreement on that can be added to the baseball, because I don't know if you guys have ever held a Major League Baseball before. It's slick.
Yeah.
It is a slick ball. So that might be something.
I wonder
that they
if
could
there's
look at.
A way that they could,
how like the baseball.
Yeah, because they do that in the NFL.
Probably could. They probably looked into it. It might even be something that they're doing at like in the independent league, where they sometimes run some of these tests.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you got to start looking for something.
Yeah.
Because, as much as we love nasty curveballs and 99 up and in, I think we'd rather see Spencer Strider pitch every 5 days.
Yeah.
And see a few less 99s and wicked sliders as a result.
Patrick wants to know, any clue how prospect grades work? Is the overall score some kind of average or weighted average of the individual skill grades? How can two prospects have the same skill grades but different overall grades? Makes no sense. Love the show and keep up the good work. So we're talking about the 2080 scouting scale here, Colby. So how does that work? How does the overall grade, when we say that someone is a 55 prospect, how does that work, especially in accordance when we're talking about the 5 tools, right? And we're grading those individually as well.
Sure. So, quick rundown here of the 5 tools and also the scouting scale in general. The 5 tools are hit tool, power, arm, speed, and field, right? All pretty self explanatory. The scale is a sliding scale, 20 being the worst, 80 being the best. 20 grade is awful. It is not major league quality. To give you an example, 20 grade would be Daniel Vogelback's speed. That's 20 grade. 80 grade is Billy Hamilton. It's Bobby Witt Jr., right? It's those absolute burners. And then obviously everything in between. There are like half grades. You'll see 55s, you'll see 45s. You can get really specific with it, and teams do this. They'll give you like a 53.8 or whatever. What you need to know is that 50 is average. That is major league quality, just average, right? Not bad at all. It'll play in the big leagues is basically what 50 is. 60 is where you start to get to plus territory. 70 is double plus. 80 is elite. 80 is Aaron Judge power. That's 80 grade. So when you kind of trying to combine them and give an overall grade to a player, it's a little bit beauty in the eye of the beholder, and different positions have different values on them. So like, for example, 80 grade defense at first base is less valuable than 60 grade defense at second base or at third base or in the outfield, right? So it's a little bit of position based too. If you have 60 grade power as a shortstop, that is more valuable than having 60 grade power as a first baseman or a right fielder, because you're looking for things that are unique, things that give you an advantage over the average player at that position. So if the average first baseman hits 25 home runs and you have 25 home run power, overall, that's probably 55 grade power. But in your profile, that's about 50 to 55 at most. And it's less valuable than if you have a catcher who can hit 25 home runs, because that's more rare. So if you have a catcher and a first baseman, right? Let's just say they both have 30 grade speed. They both have, they both have 50 hit, 50 power, and they have, arm doesn't really matter, but let's say 55 arm. They're just the same across the board. The catcher is the better prospect because he plays a more valuable position, and the difference between him and like league replacement level is going to be vast, because the number of catchers who are 50s across the board minus speed is like, there's like 5 of them, 6 of them at most, right? Whereas first basemen who are just average hitters, like can't run, but they're okay defensively, they're dime a dozen. They are easier to find. So a lot of the time you just look at the position. If you play up the middle, catcher, shortstop, second base, center field, then your hit tools carry a lot more weight. And if you have a lower hit tool than a third baseman, for example, then you could still be just as valuable as that guy, because your center field defense is more valuable than his third base defense. So even though he hits a little bit better than you, you're making up for it with more impactful defense and base running. So it's not really an aggregate thing. At least this is my understanding of it. Maybe some teams actually do this and they have like an aggregate system. But to me, the overall grade is just kind of trying to tell you what type of player this guy is going to be. So it's, hey, this guy's a 50. He's an average major leaguer. He is, might be a starter, could be a bench guy, but he is a guy who if you give 450 plate appearances to, you're going to be fine. Like he's fine. If you're a 60, you're starting to talk about all-stars, like 5-6 players. 70s and 80s, those are MVP candidates. So the overall grade to me is just about, this is about what we expect the player to be. If you're a 40 to 50, you're a bench guy. If you're 50 to 60, you're, either a really strong platoon guy or you're an everyday player. If you're 60 to 70, you're an all-star. If you're 70 to 80, you're an MVP candidate.
Mhm.
And sometimes like tools, like the individual tools don't seem like they would add up to a 70 grade hitter. Like, for example, right? Yordan Alvarez. He is a 40 grade, he's a 40 glove, 40 run, but he's an 80 hit or 70 hit and 70 power. And he's an MVP candidate. He's a 70 player. So typically speaking, teams are going to put more value on the bat than they will on anything else. The bat and the power are the two that carry the most weight. But again, if you play up the middle, if you play a really good defensive position, then you can take less off the bat, or you can take more off the bat and still be a higher grade because the defense you're providing is so valuable based on the position you play.
So if you guys want us to talk more about like terminology and break down some terms here on the show, let us know. Like, let us know in the comments if you want us to kind of just like go through stuff like WRC plus and whatnot, stuff that we talk about a lot on this show. All right, that is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, once again, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dane Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.